There's a specific anxiety that I think everyone listening has felt, but maybe, hasn't really put a name to. It always hits you on like a Tuesday night. You open up Netflix, you have access to literally thousands of movies, documentaries, series from every country on Earth. I mean, it is the greatest library of entertainment in human history.
And you scroll for 45 minutes.
And I watch nothing. Or I rewatch The Office for the 10th time.
Because you're paralyzed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just Netflix. It's the cereal aisle. It's picking a health insurance plan. It's choosing a career. We are just drowning in options, and we're told that this is freedom.
Right.
But today we're doing a deep dive into Barry Schwartz's The Paradox of Choice, which argues that this so-called freedom is actually making us miserable.
It is a fascinating counter-argument to what is really the official dogma of modern life. The dogma says freedom is good, choice is essential to freedom, therefore more choice must mean more freedom, more well-being.
But that's not what he found.
No. Schwartz looks at the data and says, no, past a certain point, choice doesn't liberate us. It debilitates us.
So our mission today is to figure out where that tipping point is. We're going to look at how this explosion of choice has rewired our brains, how it shifted the burden of risk onto our shoulders in some really dangerous ways.
And we're going to get to the two personality types, the maximizers and the satisficers.
Yes. One of them is happy, and the other one. Well, we'll get to that.
We will. And I think it's going to explain a lot about why you can't pick a movie on a Tuesday night.
Okay, let's start at the ground level, the supermarket. Schwartz uses this as his entry point. I think the number he cites is something like 30,000 items in a typical store.
Yeah, and that was a few years ago. It's probably higher now. But the principle stands. If you walked into a supermarket and truly, truly engaged with every choice, reading ingredients, comparing prices per ounce, checking ethical sourcing.
You'd be there for days.
You would literally be there for days. You'd have a breakdown in aisle 4.
So how do we survive it? Because I do buy groceries and I don't have a breakdown. Usually.
Well, you survive by not choosing. And this is a key insight from the book. We tell ourselves we're making all these choices, but mostly we're just filtering.
Just putting on blinders.
Exactly. We buy the same toothpaste we bought in college. We ignore 29,999 items just to buy the one thing we already know. We're using non-choice as a defense mechanism against the sheer volume of it all.
Which is, it's fine for toothpaste. If I buy the wrong toothpaste, I'm out, what, $5?
Yeah.
But the sources point out this complexity has migrated from low-stakes things like cereal to really high-stakes decisions.
Right. Think about buying a laptop. 20 years ago, you had maybe 3, 4 viable options. Now you have to weigh processor speed, RAM, screen resolution, portability, battery life, ecosystem. The list goes on.
It's a full-time research project.
It is. And Schwartz points out that in the electronics aisle, the variables are complex and the opportunity costs are really high.
Let's define that, because opportunity cost is one of those econ terms that gets thrown around a lot. What does it mean right here?
Simply put, it means that every time you choose one thing, you are actively choosing not to do 100 other things. If you pick the lightweight laptop, you're giving up the processing power.
Okay.
If you pick the power, you lose the portability. So when there are only 2 options, the cost of your choice is small. You only gave up one alternative.
But when there are 50 laptops,
you are subconsciously aware that you are giving up 49 other sets of features. The opportunity cost just explodes, and you start thinking about all the features you didn't get.
Oh, that's the worst feeling.
It completely subtracts from the satisfaction of the thing you actually bought. So you're sitting there with a brand new computer, but you're thinking about the screen resolution of the one you left at the store. It just steals the joy.
It absolutely does. And this leads into one of the, I think, most interesting sections of the research, shopping for knowledge. I hadn't really thought about higher education as a consumer marketplace before.
It's a huge shift. Historically, universities were.
Okay.
They were paternalistic. You enrolled and they just said, here is the curriculum, take these classes. It was a fixed track.
And now it's design your own major.
Which sounds incredibly empowering. But look at the psychology of it. You're asking an 18-year-old who has very little life experience to make these massive investment decisions about their own human capital. They have to choose from thousands of courses.
What if they pick the wrong mix?
Well, if they pick a mix of classes that's intellectually stimulating but leaves them unemployable at 22, who's to blame?
In the old system, you'd blame the school. Your curriculum didn't prepare me.
Exactly. But in this new shopping model, the blame falls squarely on the student. You chose those classes. You chose the wrong track. And this gets to one of the darkest parts of the paradox of choice, this massive shift of responsibility.
And before we get to the really heavy stuff like retirement, I do want to touch on entertainment just for a second, because the book mentions how this fragmentation affects us socially.
Oh, it's the loss of the water cooler moment.
Why?
Back when there were, 3 TV channels, everyone watched the same thing. You had a shared cultural language the next morning at work.
You could talk about it.
You could. Now, with TiVo, which the book mentions, and now streaming, we're all in our own little silos. I'm watching some niche sci-fi from the 90s. You're watching a cooking show from Korea. We have less to talk about.
We are alone together in our choices.
Yeah.
But okay, let's pivot to where this gets dangerous. We're moving from shopping for stuff to shopping for security.
Yeah, this is the stuff that keeps people up at night. I mean, a generation ago, you didn't choose your electricity provider. It was a regulated monopoly. You didn't choose your phone company. You just had a phone.
And now deregulation has turned every utility into a marketplace.
Which theoretically lowers prices through competition.
Theoretically.
But practically, it forces every citizen to become a part-time analyst in energy markets and telecommunications just to, pay their bills. But the most critical shift, and Schwartz is very clear on this, is in retirement planning.
The shift from defined benefit to defined contribution. Yeah, I want to make sure we nail this distinction because it feels really vital.
It's the difference between a pension and a 401k. In a defined benefit plan, that's the old pension model, the company managed the money. They promised you a check every month when you retired. If the stock market crashed, that was the company's problem.
Right. They had to make you whole. You were passive. You just did your job.
Correct. Now look at the defined contribution model, like a 401k. The company gives you the option to contribute. You have to decide how much to save. And critically, you decide how to invest it.
So if I put all my money in a tech stock that goes to zero.
That's your problem. You lose your retirement. The risk has been transferred entirely from the institution to the individual.
Wow.
Schwartz argues that we've taken people who are not professional investors and forced them to navigate this casino of financial options with their future survival at stake.
And we call this liberty.
We call it liberty, but it feels a lot like a burden. And the same thing is happening in healthcare. We've moved from the doctor knows best model to shared decision-making.
Which, again, sounds good on paper. I mean, of course, I want to say in my treatment.
You do, until you're in a crisis. The sources describe a scenario where a doctor lays out 3 different treatments for cancer. Option A has a high success rate but terrible side effects. Option B is milder but riskier. Option C is experimental.
And the doctor says, so, what do you want to do?
Exactly. And the patient is just thinking, you went to med school for 12 years. You tell me.
Yeah, please, just tell me.
But the choice is yours. And if you choose option B and the cancer comes back, the weight of that decision, the regret, it falls on you. You aren't just sick anymore, you're also guilty. This accumulation of choice creates a massive amount of regret potential in our lives.
It feels like there's no area of life that's safe from this. The research goes even deeper into who we are, the existential burden.
We are now in the business of choosing our identities.
Yeah.
It's a profound shift.
Let's talk about appearance first, this choosing beauty concept.
Right. Cosmetic surgery and advanced dermatology, they've completely changed the baseline. It used to be that your nose was your nose. You might not like it, but it was just genetics. It was a given.
But not anymore.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
Now, because surgery is accessible and common, keeping your nose is viewed as a choice.
That is a twisted way to look at it. So if I'm unhappy with how I look, it's somehow my fault for not buying a solution.
That's the psychological trap. It adds this incredible layer of pressure, particularly on women, to conform to beauty standards because appearance is now seen as something you have agency over. It transforms how I look into how well have I optimized my appearance.
It's exhausting. And it applies to work, too. The sources mention the whole work from anywhere revolution.
Which is great until you realize it means you now have to choose to stop working. If you can check email at 10 p.m., then not checking it becomes a decision you have to actively make and justify.
And you see everyone else's highlight reels online.
Constantly. Did I choose the right career path? Look at what they're doing. And this extends even to the spiritual buffet.
Right.
We don't just inherit our parents' religion anymore. We shop for communities. We look for a church or a synagogue or a meditation group that fits our values. We treat spirituality like a consumer good. And in relationships, the default path of marriage and family is just one option on a huge menu.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate for a second here. Isn't that a good thing? I mean, Being forced into a marriage you don't want or a religion you don't believe in, that sounds absolutely terrible.
And it is a good thing. We are not arguing for a return to the Dark Ages. But Schwartz's point, and this is the real nuance of this deep dive, is that this liberation comes with a very heavy psychological backpack.
Because when everything is a choice,
You are responsible for everything.
if you're unhappy, you have no one to blame but yourself.
Exactly. If you could have chosen any career, any partner, any city to live in, and you end up dissatisfied, the implication is that you made a calculation error. You messed up. And that leads to self-blame, which is a key component of depression.
So how does the brain even try to handle all this? Because we clearly aren't built to process 30,000 grocery items and the meaning of life at the same time.
Well, the economists have a model for how we should do it. It's the rational choice model. 6 steps.
Okay.
1, identify goals. 2, assess importance. 3, list options. 4, evaluate. 5, select. And 6, adjust.
That sounds like how I'd buy a house, not how I'd buy a sandwich.
And that's the problem. We don't have the time or the mental energy to do that for everything. But even if we did, there's a glitch in our software. We are terrible at predicting what actually makes us happy. Schwartz talks about the difference between expected utility and remembered utility.
Okay, break those down for us.
Expected utility is how you think that new sports car is going to make you feel. You imagine the wind in your hair, the envy of the neighbors. Experienced utility is how it actually feels, stuck in traffic, paying for gas, worrying about scratches.
And remembered utility.
That's the trickiest one. That's how you recall the experience later on. And our memories are biased by something called the peak end rule. We judge an entire experience largely by how it felt at its most intense point, the peak and how it ended.
So I could have a terrible 2-week vacation, but if I had one amazing dinner and a smooth flight home, I remember it as a great trip.
Exactly. And conversely, a great trip that ends with lost luggage might be remembered as a total disaster. Because our remembered utility is flawed, we keep making bad choices for our future selves based on this inaccurate data. We're relying on faulty archives.
Okay, so the system is rigged against us, and our brains are buggy. But the research suggests that not everyone suffers from this equally. There are 2 main personality types when it comes to decision-making.
The Maximizers and the Satisficers. This is the part of the book where most people have a real light bulb moment about themselves.
I definitely did. So define the maximizer for us.
The Maximizer is the person who needs the absolute best. If they are buying a sweater, they need to check every store in the mall. They need to compare prices online. They can't pull the trigger until they are 100% sure there isn't a slightly better, slightly cheaper sweater somewhere else.
They're optimizing for the perfect outcome.
Yes. And then you have the Satisficer. The Satisficer has standards. They know what they want. But the moment they find an item that meets those standards, they buy it. And they stop looking.
Good enough is good enough.
Right. Now, here's the paradox. If you look at the objective results, who actually got the better sweater? The Maximizer often wins. They might find a slightly higher quality item or save a few dollars.
Okay.
But if you measure subjective well-being, how happy are they with the sweater? The Maximizer loses. Badly.
Why? They got the better stuff.
Because the process was exhausting. And even after they buy it, they are plagued by the what if. They're wondering if they missed an even better deal. The Satisficer is at home, wearing the sweater, feeling perfectly content. The Maximizer is still mentally shopping.
The sources mention a really dark correlation here with maximizers.
Yes. Maximizing correlates very strongly with regret, anxiety, and in extreme cases, clinical depression. It is a recipe for unhappiness because in a world of infinite choice, the best is a moving target that you can never, ever truly hit.
There's an interesting distinction made about perfectionists versus maximizers. I always kind of assumed they were the same thing.
It's a subtle but really important point. A perfectionist has high standards, but they don't necessarily expect to meet them all the time. They can be happy with the effort. A maximizer expects to find the absolute best and feels like a failure when they can't.
I feel seen.
Yeah.
And also a little attacked. So what's the solution here? We can't just burn down the supermarket and go back to a feudal system with 0 choices.
No, and Schwartz, along with other researchers like Iyengar and Lepper, are very careful to say that choice isn't inherently evil. It's a bell curve. No choice is bad. Some choice is great. Too much choice is toxic.
And we are currently way over on the toxic side of that curve.
Way over. So we need to artificially limit ourselves. We need to learn how to become satisficers.
I have to be honest. Satisficing sounds a lot like settling. It sounds like mediocrity. I guess I'll just take this average job and this average life, you know?
We have to reframe that. It's not about lowering your standards at all. It's about realizing that your time and your peace of mind are also incredibly valuable resources. If you spend 10 hours to find a hotel room that's $5 cheaper, you haven't won. You've lost 10 hours of your life.
That's a really great way to put it.
Satisficing just means setting a high bar, finding something that clears it, and then, and this is the hard part, closing the browser tabs, walking out of the store, not looking back.
It's accepting that there might be a better option out there, but actively choosing not to care.
Because the tiny marginal improvement of that better thing is not worth the psychological cost of the search.
So good enough, effectively, is the best, because it comes with sanity.
Precisely. It's about creating voluntary constraints. You decide beforehand, I'm only going to look at 3 websites for a flight. You decide, we're only visiting 3 open houses this weekend. You create your own filter to block out the noise.
We've covered a lot of ground, from the, 30,000 items in the supermarket to the deregulation of our 401ks and the just incredible weight of choosing our own identities.
And the underlying theme is that we've let choice become a burden instead of tool. We assume that because we can choose, we must optimize every single decision.
But the reality is, our brains just aren't built for it. The maximizer mindset leads to regret, while the satisficer mindset leads to peace.
It's about being selective with your choice energy, Save the maximizing for the 1 or 2 things that truly define your life, maybe your partner, maybe your core passion. For everything else, the cereal, the jeans, the flight times, be a satisficer.
I love that. Choice energy is a limited resource. Don't waste it on toothpaste.
Exactly.
So, as we wrap up, here is a thought for you to carry with you. We live in a world where you can choose to be anyone. You can curate your job, your face, your faith.
But ask yourself this, are you actually choosing what you want? Or are you just endlessly browsing, paralyzed by the fear of picking the wrong thing?
Are you living your life, or are you just trying to avoid regretting it? Something to chew on the next time you're staring at 50 different boxes of flakes in aisle 4. Thanks for listening to this deep dive into the paradox of choice.
See you next time.